Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Scott Broughton, and I am very happy to be with you here today. A little bit of an introduction to myself. As Art mentioned, I am the Executive Director for the Kentucky Manufacturing Extension Partnership. I'm also a Product Development Specialist for the past 30 plus years. My background is really industrial design. Grew up in the automotive industry designing cars. Down in Georgia for a few years, designing lighting fixtures. Up in Pennsylvania for a handful of years, designing industrial absorbents. Been very, very blessed in my career. Been part of many, many different programs and cycles and systems for not just collaboration, but also commercializing ideas. The growth management system, which is what we're getting ready to go through, is a culmination of those 30 plus years of experience going through and helping companies identify and vet an opportunity and bring it to market. So before I go too much further, I want to do a special thank you to Purdue Manufacturing Extension Partnership, Julie and Art. Without the collaboration and partnership we have with them, obviously this would not happen. So as Art mentioned, we've been working together for several years and feel very, very blessed for that relationship. Also wanted to thank you. The fact of the matter is this webinar wouldn't happen without you being on the phone as well. So I appreciate your time and your energy as well as your interest in this topic. So growth management system itself is a systematic approach for rapidly identifying, vetting, and commercializing ideas for growth and improvement. It's a framework, if you will, for empowering workforce, developing solutions for pertinent problems. It's leveraging rapid decision making for quick solutions to problems that come up. It's really about leveraging resources. So we as companies know that there's limited resources, and one of the things that we do a really good job with, most companies at least, is looking at their existing operational processes and streamlining them, reducing non-value added activities and taking out some of that cost structure. What most companies, in my experience, do not do a good job is doing that exact same process when it comes to the development of ideas. To identify those ideas, vet those ideas, and figure out which ones make the most sense. And that's really what this growth management system program is truly about. It's about creating a focused, lean product development culture, which is removing that product development waste within cycles themselves. So let me click on my screen so it actually becomes live. So as I mentioned, growth management system is a systematic approach for identifying an idea, vetting that idea, and commercializing that idea. Really, at the brass tacks part of it is it's a project management toolbox. It starts conception and runs its way through successful launch. If you think about, many people probably remember stage gate processes and programs in the past, and in a way, it is a stage gate program. In my experience in 30 plus years of doing this, the largest form of waste when it comes to product development is actually in the miscommunication, the misalignment. What this program does, what the growth management system does, is it aligns and removes miscommunication. It ensures the entire team are walking in the same direction. It ensures that the business strategies are being adhered to, as well as the activities are all in support of the strategies as we're moving forward from that standpoint. So moving forward from that standpoint, as everything, it always starts with business strategy. And as they say, either you have it or you don't. Business strategies are extremely important for any organization as they're moving forward. And again, this is company 101, right? Everybody understands what a business strategy is. Everybody also understands that all companies have multiple business strategies, and depending on what their needs are, those business strategies are going to be different and also have a different pipeline. So as an example, let's say that one of your strategies was to reduce your operating costs by 20%. You would actually say, okay, that's a great strategy, but how are we going to do that now? You need a pipeline of ideas to figure out how you reduce your cost structure by 20%. If you had same company, but another strategy that said something like, we're going to break into this new industry, new to us industry. Again, how are we going to do that? That is the funnel, if you will, or that pipeline. That's really what we're talking about. One of the things that most people don't really realize that strategies themselves are nothing more than just large problems. every problem needs solution spaces, and every problem with solution spaces needs an evaluation process to figure out what solution space is the best to resolve that problem. Business strategies are absolutely no different. So again, growth management system starts off with those business strategies, and they walk through, well, filling that pipeline. So if you think about, an ideation session, and the ideation session is a way to fill that pipeline with full ideas or fragments of ideas. It's really a way to truly understand the different components that make up different ideas. So what I mean by that is ideas come from all kinds of different places, okay? And those ideas come in different fragments, different forms. It could be graphics. It could be going through and better understanding your customer, your competitors, yourself. An ideation session itself is just going through and understanding something you want to do, and it's a solution space itself. So, I do what I call brain steering, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the fact of the matter is it's the process of how you fill your pipeline. And without a full pipeline, we're dead in the water. So with the assumption that most of you do not have a full pipeline, otherwise you wouldn't be on the phone here, that's really where we're starting from an ideation session itself. Now, if you're going through the growth management system, and again, you start off with a business strategy, and then you say, okay, I need some solutions for that business strategy, and I create an ideation session. That ideation session is going to be all across the board. It's just going to be fragments of ideas. It's going to be good, bad, and different. Some of those ideas start to gel forward, and they move into what we call the definition phase. The definition phase is really, well, it's answering the question, who is my customer and why do they care? Okay. So who is my customer and why do they care? So what we're talking about here is we're bringing some clarity to the ideas themselves. So keeping in mind in ideation, they're fragments and they need to kind of gel to come together. When you're in the definition, you start picking some of those better ideas and you start defining it to understand your customer, their needs, their problems, their wants, their demands, and truly asking and understanding from a customer's perspective, is this a good idea for us to work forward with or not? The fact of the matter is there's a lot of great ideas that come from your customers, but there has to be a vetting process of understanding which ones we as an organization want to move forward with and which ones we do not. And that really funnels into the next stage, and that's discovery. So as much as the definition phase is about identifying the customer and what's in it for them, we also need to look at it from the standpoint of the company and what's in it for a company. So discovery is all about company looking at any particular idea and understanding should we or shouldn't we be moving forward with this. This is when we start looking at the return on investment, identifying the various different problems of bringing something to market. It starts looking at all the different moving pieces to better understand yes or no, we should be moving forward with this idea itself. So as important as the definition phase is understanding your customer, discovery is just as important, because sometimes the answer is just no. It's not worth us spending the time, the money. It's outside of our strategies. There's a lot of legitimate reasons for the answer to be no. So the discovery phase is really where we start understanding, should we start spending money or not? As some of those projects move forward into the development phase, this is something that near and dear and most of us understand. And this is when you actually start spending money. You start, paying for tooling. You start putting up your supplier development. Start developing SOPs, standard operating plans. This is when you truly start spending the money itself for a project as it's in the process of getting developed. This is where most people would say most of the development actually happens. In the industrial design world, we would say those first three stages, ideation, definition, and discovery, is what we would call the fuzzy front end. They call it fuzzy front end because it's ideas that are still gelling. We haven't quite solidified what we are or not doing at this point. When it flips from discovery to development, it's almost in what they would call a design freeze. It's almost at a point where this is, okay, we've identified the customer. They said they wanted it. We talked to them. They're waiting for it. We've looked into it from a company's perspective and said, you know what? This is something we can do. We have the resources. There's no reason why we can't do it. We can make money on it. What's left other than the developing? And that's really what we're talking about. This is truly that point of no return. You start outlining the lean processes, your supplier development, you start putting all the different pieces together, understanding how and the most efficient way of doing some different things from that standpoint. The next stage after the development is the delivery. And most people would call this is the launch. This is when your product gets and launched into the market. And marketing and branding and the graphics, all the different aspects of how a potential customer or end user is going to find your product, your service that you're bringing to market. This is how you are going to make sure it's placed in the right spot for them to see it and understand it and take advantage of it. And many times, a lot of companies will say, we're done. We delivered it. It's launched. But the fact of the matter is, it's not. There's another aspect here, and that is actually the post-delivery. So post-delivery happens obviously after delivery, after the launch, and it's the analytics. It's the spot in time when you start doing the evaluation and you start looking at the variables on either we have been successful with a successful launch or we have not. It's extremely important to start keeping track or to keep track of quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and those sales and those aspects. It's something that most companies still do, but in my experience, it's not as solidified as it needs to be. And part of that is because they have too many, as they call, variables juggling. And if something goes sideways, you really don't have a good reason to figure out why or how. So it's one of those guessworks, which means that projects tend to fail at that point. The growth management system itself is truly just a project management toolbox. It starts off with business strategy, and it works those projects from start all the way through post-delivery to your waiting customer base and understanding it from that standpoint. It's aligning your team. It's going through and creating that proper communication from department to department and with your customer. It's making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. We all know that improper alignment, miscommunication costs us money. The fact of the matter is, in today's world, we really don't have the luxury of misses when it comes to product development. In many cases, we only have a certain amount of money that we can spend for any particular company. And in my past, I can remember times when we would start working on projects and we would, as they say, throw 10 things up against the wall and hope one or two of them sticks. We can't do that anymore. And the reason why that used to work back then is not now is because we don't have the same problems that we had back then. Things move so fast these days. You have competitors and you have people who are raking the internet, just making sure that, they're coming up with the newest trends. So as you're coming up with these great ideas, other people, you have to assume, are coming up with some similar ideas that'll resolve the problem as well. So the faster you can bring it to market, the better it's going to be. When you throw 3 things up against the wall and 2 of them stick, that's a positive. So it was a quick story. Okay. So I guess it was about 10 years ago. Okay. And I was obviously in the state of Kentucky, and I was working with a customer. We'll call him Frank, and we'll say he's in central Kentucky. And I got a call from Frank, and Frank said, "Hey, Scott, I need some help. Come and see me." So I made plans, went down to see Frank, and walked into Frank's facility. And we were walking through his facility. We got into his storage room, his warehouse. And from floor to ceiling, all I saw was boxes of this products, shelves and shelves and shelves of these boxes. And from a lean perspective, you start going down the rabbit hole of saying, okay, inventory is bad, Frank. And I started going and helping him see how you might be able to make some of those changes. And finally, he interrupted me. He said, "Scott, leave my products alone. That's not the problem." "What's the problem, Frank?" He said, "I need you to find me somebody to sell them to." I said, "Okay, that's a different dynamic. What happened?" He said, "Well, this is what happened." Okay, so first of all, Frank is the owner of the company. Okay, Frank has a business model, and he's been very, very successful. And he's a plastics manufacturer. Does a couple of different things, various different products. And in one of his processes, he had some extra materials that was part of his processes, as well as some things he was trimming off that he actually had an idea to convert that waste, for lack of better words, into a new product. So he was over here, and I guess in a way he did some ideation, but basically, it just happened to the next day. He was in at a function in his local community, and he was talking to his good friend, is a banker. It's his banker, and as the person he had all his loans through. And he was talking to his friend, told him about his idea, and of course, his banker friend said, "This is a fantastic idea. I think you need to go do it." So Frank went through and said, I agree. I think we should. So he did start defining it. He got feedback from one person, not enough, but one person. He completely skipped discovery. He really spent most of his time in development because he went through and he paid for new tooling and realigned different processes. He even moved some of his line on some of his other products. He completely skipped delivery. There was no marketing and branding. He had this literally in a brown box that had his name on it. That was it. And then in post-delivery, when things were not selling, he was trying to figure out why. And we were able to get some resolution for him. But my point of bringing that story up is real simple. How many times have you gone through something similar to that? I know I have. Somebody had an idea, and it's the best idea. It's my idea, so can't be anything wrong with it. And you start pushing it through what you know are the proper procedures and steps, and you just skip things as you're going along. And then all of a sudden you get to another part, and you say, things are not working, and you're not quite sure understanding why. The growth management system forces you to ask the right questions, making sure that you get the right answers before you move on to that next step. And that's extremely, extremely important when we're talking about from the growth management system itself. So as I mentioned, it starts off with business strategy. And just to kind of go into some more detail about the system itself, all activities need direction. Even direction needs direction. The number one waste for all companies when it comes to developing new ideas is not focusing on the right stuff. Not focusing on the right stuff. So setting and understanding your business strategy sets a direction for all to understand and, more importantly, follow itself. So as you're going down that business strategy rabbit hole, as they say, you cannot help somebody until you help yourself. You cannot grow yourself until you understand, you need to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. How big is the marketplace? You need to understand who you are and what you're doing and truly what you're really, really good at. And the best way that I'm aware of doing that is a SWOT analysis. But to truly understand who you are and what you do, there's a reason for doing that. And that is because truly it's your business or your part in the business. And you need to be in control of your own destiny. You need to be able to set your own direction. You need to actively know who you are and what you're doing and why they should care about you. More importantly, them see why you are their best solution space. As they state, fate does not work. Dumb luck really does not work. You need to own your own direction, and for you to be able to do that, you need to set and tell people and educate people who you are and what you do. So as I mentioned, SWOTs are one of the multiple ways that we help somebody put together a business strategy. I prefer some other different methods, but SWOT for the purpose of this webinar is a quick and easy way of doing it. So just for the sake of timing, and actually if you wanted to grab a piece of paper out, certainly more than welcome to do that. But for me, when I talk about my organization, okay, when I think about our strengths, and actually we are really aligned with the Purdue Manufacturing Extension Partnership quite well. Both of our strengths are our personnel. Both of us hire industry specialists that have decades of manufacturing experience. Both of us engage in transformational engagements. So we know what it takes to say, okay, this is where you're at. This is where you need to get to. Let's help you get there. I mean, that is one of our strengths. That's what we both do very, very well. There's a reason why we're good partners here, folks. We're both part of a university, me through University of Louisville, they obviously through Purdue. That partnership is a strength that, neither one of us has really tapped into to the point where we are both satisfied with it. We're both part of this national network. There's 51 centers across America. We just happen to be two of those 51. with us being both part of the university, we obviously have access to students. We have both, program return on an investment. We understand end of the day, you need a return on investment on the dollars that you're spending. We talked about our weaknesses. Again, as we're going through this, if you happen to be writing things down yourself, that's part of why I'm going through this. This is just giving you an example of type of exercise that I normally do. But for us, one of our weaknesses, we have a divided attention. We are all over the place. We're squirrel, everywhere and anywhere. We're looking for attention, and it divides our teams up all across the state, which is another weakness we have. We do cover the entire state. For Kentucky, there's 120 counties in Kentucky. There are some counties that there's only one. There's counties in Kentucky, there are no manufacturers in that county, but we are still required to touch and talk to them. We, just like you, have workforce issues, just like everybody else. Our team is extremely busy. When you think about our opportunities, we have a very target-rich environment. We want to forge a stronger relationship with our university partners and community colleges. When you think about our threats, well, we, just like you, we have to adhere to the policies given to us by federal and state policymakers. There's competition, just like everybody else has competition. We have to navigate the gatekeepers as everybody else is dealing with it at that point as well. So again, a SWOT analysis is one of the quickest and easiest ways to start you better understanding who you are and what you're trying to do. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a minute or two. Hopefully I have somebody writing something down, because again, I would like you to better understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. But I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions thus far. So again, SWOT analysis is one of the multiple ways that we use the growth management system to help you better understand who you are and what you're doing. Okay. The next step, obviously, is, okay, we have a business strategy. Now we need to fill that pipeline. Okay. And we do an ideation session once those strategies are identified. Those ideation sessions is really the most basic way of just simply putting a bunch of ideas together and starting to align to try to figure out, a problem at hand and see if it will resolve that solution. There's lots of ways of doing ideation sessions. There's, different reasons for doing ideation sessions, but the fact of the matter is, an ideation session at its root is a problem-solving tool. It doesn't really care what the problem is. Doing an actual ideation session, it just wants to create some solution spaces. So again, the very first step in doing any ideation session is truly identifying what is the problem we're trying to resolve. Going back to the business strategy, if it was something about new operations, we wanted to reduce our operational cost by 20%. We'd want to come up with a bunch of solution spaces that would help reduce cost. If you wanted to create a new market for your offering, going to a new business environment. Again, you want to create some potential solution spaces, some ideas, and how you might be able to do those. They're not all created equal. Some of them are going to be great, some of them are not going to be so great, but that's all right. You want to make sure that it's important to align your ideation session with your strategies, because we've all been there. At least I've been there many, many times. As you start going down a rabbit hole of an ideation session, and all of a sudden somebody deviates you to this other different area, everybody walks away thinking pretty good about themselves, and then we figure out that we didn't even resolve what we're trying to do. We're trying to come up with different colors, and we came up with names of dogs, and to do with what we're trying to do. So an ideation session needs purpose, it needs direction, it needs truly what you're trying to do and understanding and alignment from that standpoint. For me personally, I like doing what they call spark decks. As I mentioned, there's lots of ways of running ideation sessions. A good facilitator will always stretch the participants. They're going to force everyone to think out of the box. They want you to come up with unique thoughts and ideas, and because of that nature, it's easy to go down those rabbit holes. I do what we call brain steering. It's a way for me to control the inventive mind waves, if you will, and the discussion that we're happening. I normally start off with some pre-homework. I send it out to everybody, and I ask everybody who's going to participate in the ideation session to spend a couple hours doing some research. And that research could be anything from competitive benchmarking, going out to talk to customers. It could be a bunch of imagery. It could be intellectual property searches, can be anything and everything. And really what we do in the Spark Deck is we bring all that information together. Picture 20 individuals in an ideation session, each of them spending 2 hours of research. That is a lot of hours, a lot of power that we're going to regurgitate back to everybody in that Spark Deck itself. So in a Spark Deck, typically, every participant normally goes through somewhere between 5 and 20 ideas. It just depends on how open that participant is. Is they reactive? Are they proactive? It also talks, and it really, it's about the length of the ideation session itself. So I've done ideation sessions in little as 30 minutes. I've done others in as long as a full week. It just depends on how big the problem is and what you're trying to do from that standpoint. So one example of a Spark Deck slide, if you will, is what we have here. So, again, everybody's heard the phrase, the destination of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So again, if you have a pencil and paper, I'm going to ask you some questions. And again, the purpose of this is just to get you to think. I want you to kind of take away something from this webinar, something that hopefully you can actually do something with tomorrow. But if I was to ask you, what can you do to change our customers' perception of us? What would that be? Okay, so again, part of a Spark Deck is you have somebody facilitating you, asking questions, probing, send you images, and you're supposed to be sparking one thought to another. So if I was to ask you as an example, how do you think our customers perceive us, and what do you think we could do to make some changes in that? If I was to ask you as an example, what is the newest product or service that entered your market and what made it successful, or more importantly, what made it not successful? You think about some of those different things that hits, and those had successful hits. Why were they hits? Was it just because they were a fantastic idea, or is it because they had something else going for them? I promise you, when you walk through Walmart, there are lots and lots and lots of products on those shelves that are horrible, horrible products, but you're still buying them. Likewise, there's other products right next to it that you're not going to be buying simply because they didn't actually have the right market materials and they didn't hit the market correctly. So again, think about those new products, new services, what made them successful or not successful, because you can obviously learn from mistakes as well. When you think about how can we take our customer service to the next level, customer service is a phrase that we all use a lot. What's customer service mean to you? When you think about who your customers are, and your customer could be an internal customer, a quality person that has an internal customer to people who are upwind or downwind from them. So when you think about your customers, how can you take customer service to them at the next level? And what does that do for a product offering for yourself? Does that bring new services to you? When you think about what a next level relationship looks like, okay, when you think about, next level itself, okay, if you're to put your relationship on steroids, where does that take you? Does that take you someplace interesting? Does it not take you someplace interesting? So again, my purpose of showing you this is just an example of some of the ways we do Spark Decks, and this is just one example. All this, the important element here is real simple, is capturing the idea, and more importantly, documenting those ideas. And through the growth management system, we have a process of not just capturing those ideas, but documenting those ideas, where they came from, what's the basis of them. We've all, again, been into situations where we have individuals that had a great idea, and we all said, yes, we need to do that. And then push comes to shove, at the end of the day, nothing gets done. So it's deflating when people are participating in ideation sessions and nothing happens to it. So part of this is you're trying to entice people to care. You're trying to entice people to use their voice, truly understand what we're trying to do. So jumping into the definition. Okay, so again, we have the ideation, we have a bunch of ideas, we're jumping into the definition phase. Definition is, as I mentioned, all about the customer. It's balancing that customer need, the customer wants with the customer demands. It's putting meat on the bones, as they say, to ensure that voice of customer is embedded into the idea itself. It's taking on the customer's perspective on what their needs are without any concern about what's best for the company at this phase. This is about the customer. So for us, what I normally do is I drop it into what we call the 3 S's: situation, solution, and substance. Any idea, we have to truly clarify who is the customer and what is their problem. You need to remember that your customers really don't care what your problems are. They don't care if you keep your doors open. They don't care if you have a new product coming to market. They don't care, because the fact of the matter is they're looking for a solution. And if you don't have it, they will go someplace else. So the first step in bringing clarity to your idea, obviously, is defining who your customer is and what is their problem. Keep in mind that you can't just say we're going to be everything to everybody. You actually have to really scope it in and focus on who is your demographic customer and what is their problem, knowing that every solution space has multiple solutions around that problem. Which brings them to step 2, which is a solution. What do you want to do about it? What is your solution space? What makes it the best solution space? What other feedback do you have that tells you this is the best solution you can actually have to create a solution space for that problem? The last step is something that, in my experience, nobody ever does. It's answering the question, why should I care? Change is hard. Anytime you're going to bring something to market, you are changing people's behaviors, thoughts. And anytime you're asking somebody to make a change, their very first question back to you is, why should I do that? That's a substance. Substance is actually responding to the potential questions later on. So when you think about the 2 best ways for business development in general, they fall within 2 categories. Either you're taking a new idea to an existing customer base, or you're taking an existing idea to a new customer base. And you're controlling the variables as you're going back and forth. So what I mean by that is, if you have an existing customer base, this is a known entity, and you're bringing something new to them, if something goes sideways, something fails, you have an idea that is probably more on the new products, not on your customer base, because your customer base is somebody you know. The other side of that is, again, taking an existing idea to a new customer base, adapting an existing capability to new customers. So again, you have a known product. This is something that you have experience with. You have products that your customers love. If you're trying to take that to a new customer base itself and it's not doing as you expected, you can at least look to a variable and make an assumption it's probably your customer. Controlling your variables, making sure that you at least understand the less variables you have to control, the easier it is to make some quick changes from that standpoint. After this definition, you get into discovery. Discovery, again, as much as definition is about the customer, discovery is all about the company. It's asking and answering the question, what's in it for the company itself? And about profit. It's about understanding that somebody has to look out for the company and making sure that their best interests are being met. This is a spot where we start looking into why we're doing it as a company. Can we do it? Can we not do it? Sometimes, again, the answer is no, it doesn't make sense for us to do. It's against our principles, strategies, or whatsoever. The best way to answer that question, of course, is through return on investment, ROI. It's outlining and understanding and actually answering the question, how much better off are we going to be after this is done? First thing that all bosses, at least I ask my team, is how much money are we going to make in this and what's my return on investment? Until that is answered, nothing should be moving forward. Nothing can get started. It's like driving in the dark without your headlights on. You might make it through, but it's only by dumb luck. It's no way to run a business. We cannot just close our eyes and hope for the best. So again, the best way to build that return on investment is by understanding all the true costs. And again, in most cases, you come up with the superficial, things that are on the facade, but there's a whole deeper rung of activities that happens underneath that are those hidden costs. So part of this phase is you understanding what are those hidden costs, putting numbers to them, making sure that when you are evaluating a project, you have the true costs that you're looking at. Now, we're bound to come across problems at some point, okay? The problem could be just a matter of how we are working our activities, but we use what we call rapid decision-making. You know that by PDCA cycles, plan, do, check, act. The same PDCA cycles you use in your lean principles, we just have embedded them into our product development cycles itself. Establish your objectives, take action, evaluate, adjust, and improve. And tackle the larger objectives first, the large problem child first. And what that allows you to do is identify something that might stop your project from moving forward quickly and efficiently. Nothing wrong with a project dying. What happens is that when a project dies, it dies 6 months from now, and that's when you run into problems. My project is going to die. I want it to die tomorrow. I don't want it to die 6 months from tomorrow because, again, it's going to burn all my resources. So what we're normally running into when we're working with that program, doing those PDCA cycles, is we're identifying the obstacles and what are our speed bumps. So again, obstacles are anything that is detrimental from your project success. It's anything that can stop the momentum. It's anything that can kill your project. And speed bumps are those, well, they're the annoyance. They're the things that can get resolved. You can see how to resolve it. It's a matter of just rolling over it, for lack of better words. What we want to do is we want to identify and focus on the large obstacles first. The speed bumps, for the most part, they work their way out. They almost always resolve themselves, but we want to make sure that the obstacles themselves are done quick and efficiently. So again, another quick exercise. If we were to look at your largest obstacles as an organization, we want to identify what their problems are, and then we want to identify why they care. We cannot help remove an obstacle until we understand, first of all, who they are, what their problems are, and more importantly, what is their costs, what is their issues with moving forward. It has, in most cases, nothing to do with you as an organization. It's personal. It's themselves. When you think about development, again, we're figuring out the customer, we figured out company, what's left now but to just get it done. It's the idea of going through and satisfying your strategy by bringing it in and just put your blinders on and start working on things as much as you possibly can and get it to the finish line as quickly as you possibly can. For you to do that, of course, you need to stay focused. Again, part of understanding when you're in the development is the point of no return, and most major obstacles and speed bumps should have been resolved. It's using the process to move yourself along, because when you're in this, again, you should be in a design freeze, which means that you should be able to put your blinders and continue moving on from that standpoint. When you're working with projects in general, there's only 3 questions that really matter. Are your projects on time? Are your projects on or under budget? Or do you have any issues? When you are working with any of your project team and you have a hour update meeting, hour and a half update meeting, you are not having an update meeting. You're having a working meeting. Working meetings should be done offline, outside of when you're having update meetings. Because when your project leader comes in and they say, yes, we are on time, yes, we're under budget, we don't have any issues, this is a five-minute stand-up meeting. You're done, move on. What we run into, though, is we actually start working on the projects and we get more into the weeds in these update meetings. So part of the growth management system itself is helping everybody understand their role as they're going through and working these projects in general. Of course, you have product launch. Product launch is waiting to the customer, having a waiting customer base, receiving what you're bringing to them. It's the culmination of all the different activities. It's going through and truly understanding that there's a marketing strategy with all the different moving pieces into it. It's going to answer the question, how am I going to find this product? And again, part of the system is helping you understand that this process really started back in definition when you start defining who the customer is, because your marketing strategy should embed those issues with what you have from a strategy standpoint. When you go into post-delivery is going through and putting some analytics, going through and doing some analytics from the standpoint of understanding the product launch happens yesterday. 3 months from yesterday, we should be here and here and here. So you actually have to track and do some analytics as you're going through and ensuring your milestones are being met. Part of those analytics themselves is helping you understand and setting those expectations, tracking those expectations that you're required for success. It's really understanding, and the only way you're gonna realize if your ROI actually manifests itself. So those update meetings I was talking about, a couple things to remember. First and foremost, as they say, you cannot measure what you do not track. The growth management system or anything you're using should truly help you understand and keep track and document all the different activities you're doing, and helps you understand Are you on track or you're not on track? If there's any fuzziness, you have to go back and realign. Second is you can never have too much communication. Miscommunication causes money, causes delays, causes rejection, causes issues, causes stress, causes all the problems of delays in project launches, but also stops projects from launching in the first place. The third is a project, well, they need a leader. That leader needs to bring the energy and the passion, someone who's going to be just determined to get things done and move it forward from that standpoint. Oops, going the wrong way. So when you think about the growth management system, it actually has like a 3-leg unit for project management. You have a project leader that keeps in track of the customer needs. You have a management coach, which is keeping track of the company needs. You have normally a process coach, which makes sure everybody's following the formula to ensure that everything is aligned, you're asking the right questions, and you are being as efficient as possible. And I'm just looking at the time. Look like we do have a few extra minutes, but I do want to have some questions and answers. So actually, I'm going to stop sharing. You can see my contact information there, and I know that Julie and Art will be sending to some others. But what questions do you have for me at this point?
We have a question in the chat box. Says, what stage do you find is the toughest for people?
It depends on the group. If it's an engineering group, it's normally the discovery, because actually going through and understanding what's in it for the company, most people take things for granted and they don't communicate. If you're having a bunch of individuals that they're reactive in mindset, the tough is actually the ideation session, because they have a hard time opening up and getting outside of the box. So it just depends on the group we're dealing with and how we are trying to bring them along through the process itself. Well, you're on mute, Art, if you're talking.
Yeah, I was talking and I was on mute. David asked, will this recording be made available? I see a thumbs up. Julie, is this going to be posted somewhere?
Yes, we'll send it out as a link when we're done in the next day or so.
Okay.
Well, a couple things to just wrap up. First of all, really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys here today. I know that I talk a little fast, so hopefully that wasn't too fast for you. If you have any questions about the growth management system, if you want to sit down with myself, reach out to Art and his team. He'll coordinate with myself to actually have us all sit down and have a conversation from that standpoint. Obviously, if you're in Kentucky, you can still work out through Art, or you can actually reach out myself directly. And again, I get excited by helping and working with companies to help them grow in some meaningful way. So that meaningful way is different for every individual. Some people are looking for new products and new services. Other people just want to change the morale and make it an empowered workforce. So it just really just depends on what you're trying to do. The growth management system itself has been something we've been doing for about a decade in Kentucky, and we've had some pretty good success with people going through and managing that time.
There are a couple more questions in here. What stage requires the most people to collaborate?
That's a great question, Trevor. Part of the growth management system is actually creating a team environment. Okay. So the team that goes through the ideation becomes part of the team underneath that management or the client coach as they're going through towards the end of it. So that collaboration should be starting from the start, going all the way through the end of it. I would say, because after you get past, you start working the actual projects, you start working more on an individual standpoint with the team. So the act of collaboration is probably ideation and going through the definition.
Okay, the other question was, I think we've answered this one, but if a company wanted to use this system, how do they get started? Tara, I put my email in there, and also my cell phone number. I'm going to also post a link to my calendar so that you can, if you'd rather just have a quick sit down or a Teams meeting, we can do that as well. So I'll put that here in the chat. You can feel free to copy it or go to that link. But then we would work with Scott and connect everybody together. So I'm gonna put this up there. Hold on just a second.
As he's doing that, I'm looking at the question from Tony Malika about case studies. Yeah, we have lots of case studies. Couple quick success stories out the top. I'm working with a client right now that they own their market. Okay, they are the number one manufacturer, the product they go to market with right now. And I'm working with their team to help them see that there are other projects that they can work with the tooling and the personnel they have. They're breaking into some other different, not industries, but line extensions and other products that their customers are looking to. It's something that's been going on for about a month and a half, and we are in a second wave of working with a different team at that same organization. One that started, actually, this is a company called Outdoor Venture down in McCreary County in Kentucky. It's a company that actually does military tents. We started their growth management system journey about 12 years ago now. And they have some black belts that I trained in their facility. They actively leverage the growth management system for all their project management, specifically for, they got two groups. One is looking for new ideas. The other one is new ideas for operational improvement. And they meet, each group meets once a week. And they've been doing that for years and years. And they would say that this has saved them multi-millions of dollars annually just because of the process that they're doing. So, we could also send some other success stories to yourself, Tony, if you need some more. The best way to learn more about the growth management system itself is for us to sit down and have a conversation. I can put you in contact with some people that have gone through it. You could have a one-on-one conversation away from our ears. But there's the whole system. What it's meant to do is truly, to teach, train, and mentor you and your team to sustain it. That's really what we're talking about. Is it truly is trying to use PDCA cycles in the product development system itself to remove those non-value added activities, and that's really what we're trying to do. Once that starts to get realized, your team starts taking over most of the activities, and then we're good to go.
Okay, great job, Scott. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone who attended. And again, if you have any questions, certainly reach out. Purdue and Kentucky or U of L are both here, and like I said, we work a lot together. So I'm sure we can make sure you get the information you need. So thank you again, Scott, for your time. Thank you, Julie, for all the work you put in pre and post of this webinar. And we'll see you all around somewhere in the state, probably, or in Kentucky. So appreciate y'all coming. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody's time today. You guys have a fantastic day.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot.